Being told your blood pressure is high when you're still in your 30s or early 40s can feel confusing and unsettling. You may eat reasonably well, try to manage stress, and still see numbers that don't make sense. Many women are told it's just stress, salt, or genetics, and left wondering what they're missing. Very often, the overlooked factor is progesterone. Progesterone is not just a reproductive hormone. It plays an important role in calming the nervous system, relaxing blood vessels, and buffering the body's response to stress. After 30, progesterone levels often decline quietly, even before menopause, especially when stress is high or ovulation becomes less consistent. In this video, you'll learn how low progesterone can raise blood pressure, why this happens in women under 45, and what gentle, hormone-friendly habits help support healthier readings. Progesterone, the overlooked hormone that keeps BP calm. When blood pressure rises, during stress, PMS, or poor sleep, you may notice your blood pressure climbing during anxious weeks before your period or after nights of poor sleep. The numbers feel unpredictable and frustrating, especially when you're still under 45. In many women, this pattern isn't random. It often appears when progesterone, the hormone that helps keep the nervous system calm, is no longer doing its full job. What progesterone does for blood pressure. Progesterone has a naturally calming effect on the body. It supports the parasympathetic nervous system, the system responsible for rest, relaxation, and recovery. When this system is active, blood vessels relax, heart rate steadies, and blood pressure remains more stable. Progesterone also counterbalances estrogen. While estrogen helps blood vessels open, progesterone prevents the nervous system from overreacting to stress. Together, they act like a buffer that keeps blood pressure from spiking during everyday challenges. How progesterone helps blood vessels relax. Progesterone supports smooth muscle relaxation, including the muscles that line blood vessels. When progesterone levels are sufficient, vessels are less likely to constrict in response to stress hormones like adrenaline. This relaxed vessel tone allows blood to flow with less resistance, reducing pressure inside the arteries. It also helps prevent sudden BP spikes during emotional stress, physical exertion, or caffeine intake. What happens when progesterone is low? When progesterone declines, this calming buffer weakens. The nervous system shifts toward a more alert state, even when there's no real danger. Without enough progesterone, blood vessels become more reactive. Stress hormones have a stronger effect. Heart rate rises more easily. Blood pressure becomes more sensitive to stress. This doesn't mean something is wrong with your heart. It means hormonal protection has been reduced. Why this shows up more after 30. After 30, progesterone often declines earlier than estrogen. Stress, irregular cycles, and inconsistent ovulation reduce progesterone production quietly. At the same time, daily stress increases. This combination leaves the nervous system without enough calming support, allowing blood pressure to rise more easily, especially during busy or emotionally demanding periods. Symptoms women often notice. When progesterone's calming influence is reduced, women may experience blood pressure spikes during stress, anxiety-linked BP changes, poor sleep with higher morning readings, PMS-related pressure or headaches, feeling wired instead of calm. These symptoms often come and go, making the connection hard to spot. Why this is often missed. Progesterone isn't routinely discussed in relation to blood pressure. Labs may look normal, and symptoms are often blamed on stress alone. What's missed is that hormone balance, not just hormone levels, affects how the nervous system and blood vessels behave. Doctor-approved ways to support progesterone's BP calming role. Supporting progesterone starts with reducing stress signals and improving recovery. Helpful steps include prioritizing consistent restorative sleep, eating regularly to avoid blood sugar stress, choosing gentle movement over overtraining, creating calm evening routines, reducing chronic stress where possible. These habits help restore progesterone's calming influence over time. Progesterone plays a quiet but powerful role in keeping blood pressure calm by relaxing blood vessels and calming the nervous system. When progesterone is low, which often happens after 30, this protection weakens, allowing stress to push blood pressure higher. Understanding this connection explains why BP can rise even when you're doing many things right, and why hormone-friendly support matters. Why progesterone drops after 30, even before menopause. When you feel off but tests, say you're fine, you may feel more anxious, sleep worse, notice PMS getting stronger, or see your blood pressure become unpredictable, yet you're told everything looks normal. This disconnect is common for women in their 30s and early 40s. One major reason is that progesterone often declines quietly long before menopause, and this change is rarely explained. Progesterone depends on ovulation. Unlike estrogen, progesterone is only produced after ovulation. Each month you ovulate, progesterone rises to help calm the nervous system, support sleep, and balance stress responses. After 30, ovulation can become less consistent, even when cycles still look regular. When ovulation is weaker or occasionally skipped, progesterone production drops, sometimes significantly, without obvious warning signs. This means you can still have periods and still be hormonal, yet be functionally low in progesterone. How stress steals progesterone. Chronic stress is one of the biggest reasons progesterone declines earlier than expected. When your body is under stress, it prioritizes survival. To do that, it shifts hormone production toward cortisol, the main stress hormone. Progesterone and cortisol share the same building blocks. When cortisol demand is high, those resources are diverted away from progesterone. This process is sometimes called progesterone steal, and it leaves the nervous system without its calming hormone. The result is a body that feels alert, tense, and reactive, even at rest. Why modern life makes this worse. Women today often experience constant mental load, irregular meals, poor sleep quality, high expectations with little recovery. These factors keep cortisol elevated throughout the day. Over time, progesterone production struggles to keep up. This is why many women notice worsening PMS, anxiety, sleep disruption, and BP changes in their 30s, even if their lifestyle hasn't drastically changed. Why blood tests often miss low progesterone. Progesterone fluctuates throughout the menstrual cycle. A single blood test may catch it on a normal day, even if levels are low most of the month. Timing matters, and many women aren't tested at the right point in their cycle. As a result, progesterone-related symptoms are often dismissed, even when the body is clearly signaling imbalance. This leads women to question themselves rather than the hormonal explanation. Symptoms women commonly experience. When progesterone begins declining, women may notice stronger PMS, increased anxiety or irritability, trouble falling or staying asleep, more sensitivity to stress, blood pressure that rises unpredictably, feeling less resilient than before. These symptoms often appear gradually, which makes them easy to normalize or ignore. Why this matters for blood pressure. Without adequate progesterone, the nervous system stays more active. Stress hormones have a stronger influence on blood vessels and heart rate. Over time, this makes blood pressure easier to elevate and harder to stabilize. This doesn't mean something is wrong with you. It means your body has lost one of its natural calming supports. Doctor-approved ways to protect progesterone production. Supporting progesterone starts with supporting ovulation and recovery. Helpful strategies include prioritizing sleep consistency, avoiding extreme dieting or overexercising, eating regularly to reduce stress signals, managing daily stress intentionally, allowing true rest, not just inactivity. These signals tell the body it's safe to produce progesterone again. Progesterone often begins declining in the 30s, long before menopause, due to stress, inconsistent ovulation, and modern lifestyle pressure. Because this change is subtle and rarely tested properly, it's frequently missed. Understanding why progesterone drops helps explain rising blood pressure, anxiety, and sleep issues, and points toward calmer, hormone-friendly solutions rather than blame. Low progesterone, high cortisol, and rising blood pressure. When blood pressure rises during anxiety or busy seasons, you may notice your blood pressure climbing during demanding weeks, emotional stress, or periods when you're not sleeping well. The rise feels sudden and out of proportion to what's happening. For many women under 45, this pattern appears when progesterone drops and cortisol takes over, shifting the body into constant alert mode. Progesterone and cortisol, a delicate balance. Progesterone and cortisol work in opposite directions. Progesterone calms the nervous system, supports relaxation, and helps blood vessels stay open. Cortisol does the opposite. It increases alertness, tightens blood vessels, and raises blood sugar to prepare the body for action. When progesterone is sufficient, it buffers cortisol's effects. Stress still happens, but the body can recover. When progesterone is low, cortisol's signals become louder and longer lasting. The nervous system stays activated, even during rest. How cortisol raises blood pressure. Cortisol raises blood pressure in several quiet ways. It makes blood vessels more sensitive to adrenaline, causing them to constrict more easily. It also increases blood sugar, which indirectly stiffens blood vessels over time. In short bursts, this is protective. In chronic stress, cortisol stays elevated longer than it should. Blood vessels remain slightly tight, heart rate stays higher, and forcing blood through narrower vessels raises pressure. Without progesterone's calming influence, this process becomes much easier to trigger. Aldosterone, the fluid-retaining partner. Cortisol often activates aldosterone, another stress hormone that controls fluid and sodium balance. Aldosterone tells the kidneys to hold on to sodium and water to maintain blood volume during stress. When aldosterone stays elevated, the body retains more fluid. Blood volume increases, pressure inside blood vessels rises. This is why stress-related blood pressure often comes with bloating, swelling, or heaviness, even without excess salt intake. Progesterone normally counteracts aldosterone's effects. When progesterone is low, aldosterone's fluid-retaining signals become stronger. Why this pattern is common after 30. After 30, progesterone declines earlier and faster than estrogen for many women. At the same time, life stress often increases. The combination creates a hormonal environment where cortisol and aldosterone dominate daily regulation. Sleep disruption, skipped meals, emotional overload, and constant mental demand keep cortisol elevated. Without progesterone to balance it, blood pressure becomes more reactive and harder to stabilize. This is not a failure of willpower, it's a shift in hormonal regulation. Symptoms women often experience. When low progesterone allows cortisol and aldosterone to dominate, women may notice blood pressure spikes during stress, anxiety or inner tension, swelling or water retention, pressure headaches, fatigue despite rest, feeling constantly on edge. These symptoms often cluster together, pointing towards stress hormone dominance rather than isolated lifestyle issues. Why this is often missed. Cortisol and aldosterone are rarely discussed during routine blood pressure visits. Women may be told to relax more, reduce salt, or exercise harder without addressing the hormonal imbalance driving the response. When progesterone's role is overlooked, solutions feel incomplete and symptoms persist. Doctor-approved ways to calm cortisol. When progesterone is low. The goal isn't to eliminate stress, it's to reduce constant activation. Helpful support includes consistent sleep and wake times, eating regularly to stabilize blood sugar, gentle movement instead of high-intensity training, scheduled breaks that calm the nervous system, evening routines that signal safety and recovery. These signals reduce cortisol demand and allow progesterone's calming role to rebuild over time. When progesterone is low, cortisol and aldosterone gain control over blood pressure regulation. This keeps the nervous system in alert mode, tightens blood vessels, and increases fluid retention, all of which raise blood pressure quietly. After 30, this imbalance becomes more common, not because something is wrong with you, but because hormonal buffering has changed. Restoring balance begins with calming stress hormones and supporting recovery, not pushing harder. Why BP feels unpredictable when progesterone is low. When your blood pressure feels random and uncontrollable. One day, your blood pressure looks fine. The next, it's higher, sometimes during stress, sometimes before your period, sometimes without a clear reason. This unpredictability can feel scary and frustrating. For many women under 45, this pattern appears when progesterone is low, removing the stabilizing hormone that normally keeps blood pressure steady and predictable. Progesterone's role in BP stability. Progesterone doesn't just lower blood pressure, it stabilizes it. It helps smooth out the body's response to stress, sleep changes, blood sugar shifts, and emotional triggers. When progesterone is sufficient, blood vessels adapt gradually. Pressure rises and falls gently as needed. When progesterone is low, this smoothing effect disappears. Blood pressure becomes more reactive, responding sharply to small stressors. This is why readings can vary week to week or even day to day. Why small triggers cause big BP swings. Without progesterone's calming influence, the nervous system shifts toward dominance by stress hormones. This makes blood vessels more sensitive to emotional stress, poor sleep, caffeine, missed meals, blood sugar dips, PMS-related hormone shifts. What once caused a minor response now causes a noticeable blood pressure change. The body isn't malfunctioning, it's operating without its usual hormonal buffer. The PMS and cycle connection. Many women notice blood pressure rising before their period. This is when progesterone naturally falls. If baseline progesterone is already low, this drop becomes more pronounced. During this phase, stress hormones rise more easily. Blood vessels constrict faster. Fluid retention increases. BP readings become less stable. This cyclical pattern is one of the clearest signs that progesterone is involved, yet it's rarely explained. Sleep, blood sugar, and progesterone sensitivity. Low progesterone makes the body more sensitive to sleep loss and blood sugar swings. Poor sleep raises cortisol. Skipped meals or late-night sugar dips trigger adrenaline. Without progesterone, these hormones directly influence blood vessels and heart rate. This is why blood pressure may be higher after a bad night's sleep or during days with irregular eating, even when lifestyle habits seem mostly healthy. Why this feels so distressing. Unpredictable blood pressure creates anxiety. Anxiety raises cortisol. Cortisol raises blood pressure further. This feedback loop can make symptoms feel overwhelming. Understanding the hormonal driver helps break this cycle. When women realize their BP isn't random or dangerous, fear begins to soften and the nervous system can calm. Why doctors often miss this pattern. Blood pressure is usually measured in isolation. Hormonal timing, cycle phase, sleep quality, and stress load are rarely considered together. Because progesterone doesn't show up clearly on standard tests, the stabilizing role it plays is often overlooked, leaving women without a clear explanation. Doctor-approved ways to stabilize BP when progesterone is low. Stability comes from reducing reactivity, not forcing numbers down. Helpful support includes consistent sleep schedules, regular balanced meals, reducing caffeine during sensitive phases, gentle, consistent movement, predictable daily routines, extra nervous system support before periods. These habits reduce sudden stress signals and help blood pressure settle more evenly. Progesterone acts as a stabilizer for blood pressure, smoothing the body's response to daily stressors. When progesterone is low, which is common after 30, blood pressure becomes more reactive and unpredictable. Understanding this explains why BP can fluctuate without obvious cause and why gentle, hormone-friendly consistency is far more effective than aggressive control. A progesterone-friendly blood pressure reset routine. When progesterone is low, the body needs steady signals of safety and rhythm. This routine isn't about lowering blood pressure quickly. It's about creating an environment where progesterone can do its calming job again, helping blood vessels relax, stress hormones settle, and pressure stabilize naturally. Morning, calm cortisol before it spikes. Blood pressure is often highest in the morning because cortisol rises to help you wake up. When mornings are rushed or stressful, cortisol rises too sharply and blood vessels tighten. A progesterone-friendly morning starts with consistency. Waking at a similar time each day helps cortisol follow a predictable rhythm. Eating within the first hour supports blood sugar and prevents stress-driven BP spikes. Gentle movement or slow breathing signals the nervous system that the day doesn't require urgency. Daytime protect progesterone from stress drain. Progesterone is easily suppressed by constant stress. Long gaps between meals, overtraining, and mental overload increase cortisol demand and reduce progesterone support. Regular meals stabilize blood sugar and reduce adrenal strain. Choosing moderate movement over high-intensity workouts protects recovery. Short pauses during the day, even a few minutes, help lower cortisol so progesterone isn't constantly overridden. Afternoon prevent reactivity from fatigue. As energy drops later in the day, stress hormones can rise again. Without progesterone, blood pressure becomes more sensitive during this window. Slowing the pace, reducing stimulation, and stepping away from screens help interrupt this pattern. These small resets prevent pressure from building into the evening. Evening, support progesterone's calming window. Evenings are when progesterone should help the body unwind. Late meals, emotional stress, and overstimulation interfere with this process. A calm evening routine, dim lighting, gentle activities, predictable timing, tells the nervous system it's safe to relax. This allows blood vessels to soften and blood pressure to settle naturally. Sleep, where progesterone's BP protection rebuilds. Sleep is when hormonal balance resets. Inconsistent sleep keeps cortisol high and progesterone suppressed. Protecting sleep timing and quality is one of the most powerful ways to support progesterone and stabilize blood pressure over time. Blood pressure stabilizes when the nervous system feels safe. By calming cortisol, protecting recovery, and creating steady daily rhythms, you give progesterone the space it needs to rebalance, allowing blood pressure to become calmer, steadier, and far less reactive. Conclusion: if your blood pressure has been rising and you're under 45, it's important to know this. It's often hormonal, not a personal failure. Progesterone plays a quiet but powerful role in calming the nervous system, relaxing blood vessels, and buffering stress. When progesterone drops, which commonly happens after 30, blood pressure can become more reactive and unpredictable. Understanding this connection replaces confusion with clarity. Small daily habits create powerful hormonal shifts. When you support progesterone instead of fighting your body, blood pressure often becomes easier to manage and far less frightening. Disclaimer: educational only, not medical advice. Like, subscribe, and share. Thank you for watching.